This week marks the beginning of the second quarter for the year, and if you're already stressed out because you missed targets, you don't know what your long-term goals are, so you don't know what to focus on for the year, or maybe you do know, but you know you need to regroup, realign so you can get back focused, well, I got you, because in this episode, we're going to talk about the steps you can take to avoid burnout, gain clarity, and hit your targets over the next 90 days. What up, and welcome to the Healthy Deposits Podcast, where I help you strengthen the connection between your brain, your body, and your business. I'm Quintel Harcum, owner and founder of Good Part & Company, plant-based health cafe located at Johns Hopkins University, and founder of Harcum Holistic, a health and performance coaching platform for busy professionals with high demand careers. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the steps that you can take that I actually use to help get out of my stressful 9-to-5 job to become an entrepreneur, and then I use the same steps to avoid burnout, or recover from burnout rather, because it hit me hard, to recover from burnout, get back focused, and boost my business. Now I want to share the same things with you so that you can get focused for this next quarter, right? It's kind of like a reset, right? It's like a restart or a realignment to get you back focused and get you right and ready to execute for the next 90 days. Now, a lot of times we kind of get distracted, or we lose focus, or we actually just get discouraged because we set goals that are so high and seemingly so unattainable. But really what we need to do is break it down to smaller tasks that we can actually execute on day in and day out over a set period of time. And by the time we look up, really start to hit our goals, or we see how much ground we covered and we made a lot of traction and we really progressing forward, right? So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about how to do that. Now, this really came up for me when I got an email from Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So Benjamin Hardy is an author. He's an organizational psychologist, and I've been following him since the 2010s when he blew up big time on Medium, talking about productivity and things you can do to just improve your performance, improve your productivity, and your approach to the whole world, actually. So I've been following him since then. He has multiple books, and we've exchanged some emails. I supported his projects, supported his books, of course. And he sent me an email a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna show you here. And it just was a check-in to see how things were going for 2024. And honestly, I missed a couple targets that I wanted to hit, or that I planned to hit for 2024. But I did actually just start to gain some clarity before he sent that email. So I sent a reply back, let him know how things was going, and hit me back, let me know what's shaking, encourage me, things like that, right? So he's kind of a mentor from a distance for me, right? So I follow all things he has going on. When he has time to check in with his followers like me, then he does. And I continue to support his books, learn, read, and understand how to organize things and really just step my game up. So now I'm going to share with you. I'm kind of diffuse some of the things I learned from him, combine it with a lot of the things that I actually use to help you start to level up and knock things out in the second quarter over the next 90 days. So let's get into the very first step. So there are a few steps I believe in taking to really help you clarify your goals and make some action items that you can execute on to help you hit those goals. But before you get there, you got to understand what are the things you need to do. And before you get to the things you need to do, you need to understand what the hell are you doing it for. So I like to think of it as a funnel, right? So you start at the top of the funnel, and that's where you're going to have your long-term goals. Okay, so let's switch the color real quick. And right here, oh, it didn't switch. Oh well. You want to clarify your long-term goals, right? Because this is what's really going to drive you forward. This is what's giving you purpose. This is what you really are working towards. And if you don't have a purpose, then you're just going to kind of be shuffling in limbo, not knowing what you're doing or why you're doing it. And when the purpose is strong enough, when the goals are high enough, how you obtain those goals almost becomes irrelevant, because you're just going to figure out a way to make it happen. Before you can figure out a way to make it happen, you got to set your long-term goals. So let's see if I can get this color thing right this time. All right, boom, bet. Now, when you're setting your long-term goals, right, you want to have an idea. You really want to start with the end in mind, okay? And so you want to have an idea of what your ideal life looks like. Now, everybody has an idea of what the things they actually want in their life, but sometimes you just don't believe that it can happen for you. And you got to shake that off, because if you don't believe it's going to happen for you, ain't nobody else going to make it happen for you. Nobody else can believe for you to make that happen. So you got to believe in what your ultimate vision is. So you got to start with the end in mind, right? So you got to have the end in mind. What's the ultimate vision? And so I'm not saying you have to have every single detail, because everything, you can't predict the future, but you can kind of set it up. You can have an idea of what the future should look like. So that's what the ultimate goal is, right? What is your ideal life? Now, how far out is that life? If you put something measurable on it, like time or distance or cost, then you can actually start to deduce the actual steps, right? So what is the ultimate vision? Let's say 20 years out, okay? So in 20 years, this is where I would like to be. So that seems like a pretty long way to go. So you're gonna bring it down, bring your future a little bit closer to yourself. Say something like 5 years. So that's kind of where I like to start out, like 5 years, where would I like to be? So you wanna have maybe a 5-year goal, then maybe bust it down to a 1-year goal that supports where you're gonna be in 5 years, and then we can do 90 days. That's how we really break that down. So instead of saying this is what I want to do over the next 90 days, you say this is what I want to be in 5 years. What can I do to put myself on track before I get there? Well, in 1 year, I need to be here so that I can be tracking in the right direction, right? You want to be directionally correct. That's the whole thing. Your goal is in a certain direction. If you have no goal, you're not going in any direction. You're not really going anywhere. You could be taking a bunch of different steps in a bunch of different directions, and you're not really making progress. So 5 years from now, this is where I want to be. In order to get there, I need to start doing these things. So in 1 year, I can be here, and that's going to get me closer to the 5-year goal. You want to be directionally correct. Now, once you figure out the 5-year goal, then you figure out what you can do in 1 year that's going to put you in the right direction. What can I start to do and implement now that's going to have me on track to execute all the things I want to get done in 1 year? Those are the things that you're going to put into your 90-day sprint, right? Your next 90 days, the things you plan to get done in the second quarter, right? Because now you got 3 more quarters to get it done, and now you'll be a lot closer to your 1 year goals. And if you can execute those, you're in the right direction for 5 years. You got momentum, you got confidence, and now you can just repeat that for the next year. And now year 2 of 5, you be on your way, right? And you start taking those steps in those 90 days. So you want to set long-term goals first, because you need to know what direction you actually going in, right? Long-term goals. So now that we got the long-term goals, we know what we want to do over 5 years, 1 year, 90 days. Now we need to figure out what are the actual repeatable tasks that are going to make this next 90 days and this next year successful. And one thing that I learned that Alex Hormozi said, and that I actually learned from reading a lot about from people like Dame Dash, watching his interviews and things like that, is that if you have a big vision, bigger visions happen over time. So if you set the time horizon out further, you'll have less stress, less anxiety on you in more present times, because you know it's going to take you a while to get there. So now you can just set back, be comfortable, be a little less stressed, and just work on the things that the smaller tasks you got to take care of, because you know over time those smaller tasks start to add up, they start to compound, and they start to avalanche into the longer vision. And so what you got to do now after you set up your long-term goals is you have to establish some repeatable tasks, right? So that's the next step. You want to set up the repeatable task that's going to help you. Repeatable tasks. What are the repeatable tasks that you can do, right? So let's say you wanted to lose a certain amount of weight, and instead of falling for some of those goofy diet hacks, instead of using those Ozempic, right? Instead of trying to all of a sudden do 50 muscle ups in a row or something that's crazy that you see on social media, you're gonna give yourself a reasonable, safe amount of weight to lose over a certain amount of time. Now you may have be on a more intense weight loss journey. Maybe you need to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds. All right, that's cool. You might can start out, the more you weigh anyway, the faster you'll lose a lot of weight, right? And then it'll start to get more difficult to lose a little bit of weight, right? So let's just say you want to lose some weight. What are the repeatable tasks that you have to do to lose weight? Well, we all know that when you're on a fitness journey, you're on a health journey to lose weight, the simple equation is less calories in, more calories out, okay? That means you need to burn more calories, so you need to move, And if you need to move, that means you need to have a fitness routine. So you know that you have to have some repeatable fitness routine. And it should be often. You have to have some level of frequency to it because you got to burn calories. The second part of that is calories in, right? So, well, the first, calories out. Less calories in, more calories out. So the first part of that is actually the calories in. That's the thing that's most controllable. See, calories out, we know that that's moving, but there's only about a certain amount of motion you're going to do throughout the day. Even when you're training, you're just not going to be able to burn a certain amount of calories unless you're like an ultra marathoner or something like that. And if you're already overweight by 20-30 pounds, ultra marathoning for the first step is not really going to work for you. All right, so let's reel it back in, get focused. So you got a fitness routine. Now you know what repeatable tasks you can do to get calories out, to burn calories. The other part that complements that is calories in, most controllable. That's with your diet and nutrition. So you got your diet and nutrition. What are the new repeatable tasks that you're going to execute on to improve your diet and nutrition? Right, so let's say we might work out 4 times a week for 45 minutes. Nutrition, calories in, we can control because we can eat as few or as many calories as we want. So let's say we know every day of the week we need to be in a caloric deficit. So you crunch the numbers and you figure it out, and it's like, all right, I need to be 500 calories, whatever your nutrition is. Or let's say the easy way you want to do that is, you know, you're only going to eat half of every meal you have. You don't even know how many calories that is. You just know it's half as many as you had before. Now, I'm not saying that that's advice. I'm not saying that's how you should go about your diet and nutrition, but that's a way to control your calories in. The whole point is you want to figure out something that you can do each and every day, or with a high level of frequency, so that you can repeat it over and over and over, so that you can get to your goal of losing whatever amount of weight you want. So you want to have repeatable tasks with nutrition. So you want to, let's say, have caloric deficit, 500 calories a day. So 500 a day. Boom, right? 7 days. So 1 pound is 3,500 calories. 500 calories a day. You in a deficit, that's 7 days. That's 3,500 calories. By the end of 1 week, you've lost 1 pound. And that's just by simply controlling your nutrition, that repeatable task of being in that caloric deficit. You add that or compound that with your fitness, means you're going to burn more calories, and then you're very likely on your way to losing more than 1 pound a week in a safe way. These are the repeatable tasks. So you want to set up some repeatable tasks. Now, let's say you got a financial goal, then you have to crunch the numbers and figure out how much you need to make or what inputs you have to execute on to generate a certain amount of leads or make a certain amount of money every day. I need to sell a certain, like me, we own a juice bar. I own a juice bar. We need to sell a certain amount of smoothies every day. So we need a certain amount of traffic. Okay. In the store every day. How can I do that? Well, I set up some steps to make sure I'm engaging this amount of customers every day. And so boom, there it is. I need to be engaging 50 to 60 people. On average, I'm gonna get 10 out of those people, 20% of the people, or 1/3 or something like that. They're actually gonna come through and buy something. Now, 1/3 of those people coming through, that's 20 people. They buy a smoothie at $10. That's $200 right there. That's for that engagement. And then, you can just count it up. The repeatable task though is to engage a certain amount of people every day. That's just an example of how I would use it at the juice bar. So first step, long-term goals. Second step, make repeatable tasks based on your long-term goals. A long-term goal, lose this amount of weight over a year. Repeatable tasks to make that happen. Fitness, nutrition. Boom, right? What I eat, repeatable tasks. How much I move, repeatable tasks. Now this last step is key. This is the clutch moment. This was really separate people. This is like the fourth quarter. It's the bottom of the funnel. It's where things get concentrated, where you really got to focus. So here, this is where we have to actually implement the task, right? Now, what that really means is you have to schedule the execution of these tasks. Now you got your repeatable task, you got your goal, you feel clear, you confident, you know you can get there, and even if you know it's difficult, you just know where there is. There is 20 less pounds. There is $1,000 more a week. We know where we're going. And what happens a lot of time, especially with a lot of guys who have busy, demanding careers, they just get caught up. And like, for example, I worked for the government for 14 years. I'm sitting at a desk, right? I'm doing the things I gotta do. I got my associates, they work in tech. They helping me solve problems with my computer. I'm assisting them doing some other things, or we got other people, everybody sitting in the desk doing the thing. We just get caught up in the day-to-day of doing the work, and we forget what the long-term goal is. And so we start to feel like we don't know what the priority is. And when you don't make a decision, when you lack clarity, you don't have focused energy, and you can't get the right things done, and you can't get going in the right direction. And if you don't know what your priorities are, you can't schedule around those things, or you can't block out time to execute on those things. Now you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, a whole bunch of other busy work, thinking that you just feel good because you got something done, and you look up and you didn't really get the right things done. So you got your repeatable tasks. You got to schedule time to do those things. You got to implement those tasks. Okay, so that's the third step. And I came up with a very specific strategy and guide on how to execute on those tasks. So that's step 3, and there are a few little minor steps within step 3. We're going to talk about it now.